Sachas Gittin Daf contains no less than 4 Mishnayos. From the beginning of the Daf until the first Mishnah, the Gemara finishes off the sugya of Zechia and Kinyan of a Katan. That is a Katan considered to be intelligent enough to acquire an object, that he can own it, that he can keep it, that he understands the concept of ownership? And if he can he even go ahead and acquire it for someone else? Does he understand the concept of someone else's property? The Gemara has said that he does not understand the concept of acquiring for someone else. The Gemara is going to have some kasha on that. Then the Gemara is going to establish 3 different levels of the halacha of kitanim. So let's begin. The Gemara says it was a kasha that Rav Avia asked from a brayso that discusses how you get out of having to pay an extra fifth for redeeming Meiser Sheni. The halacha is when you redeem your Meiser Sheni fruits, it's you bring it to Yerushalayim and you exchange it for money, you have to add a fifth of the value. Now, that's only if you redeem your own Meiser Sheni. If someone else redeems your Meiser Sheni, they don't have to add a fifth of the value. And the same thing, of course, if you redeem someone else's Meiser Sheni, you don't have to add a fifth of the value. So Marshal is a trick to get out of having to redeem a fifth of the value for your own Meiser Sheni. And that's you have your son and your daughter who are adults, or your Eved or your Shivcha, that are Jewish. They are an Eved Ivri or a Amariya, you get them to redeem your Meiser Sheni for you. You give them money, you say redeem it. And because they are eating at your table, everything that they buy belongs to you. But they're considered to be someone else redeeming your Meiser Sheni, so they don't have to add a fifth, and then it goes to you anyway. So where it says, when we say a shivcha, what are we talking about? Obviously, she's a kitana, she's a child, because if she already has brought to Cyrus, then she goes free. So she's a kitana. And yet, she can be claimed on your behalf, for you. So you see that there is zechia for a kitana on your behalf. So the Gemara says, that's not a raya that there's always the chiyuv on your half. Could be that we're talking about Meiser Sheni midir rabbanon. Today in our days, Meiser Sheni is only midir rabbanon, so there the halachas of the kinyanim are lighter. So Gemara says it can't be today, because today there's no amavriya. Amavriya only exists in the days when there's zayvel. So Gemara says, okay, there's a different version, a different reason that you have zechiyah midir rabbanon, that you have Meiser Sheni midir rabbanon. That's because you're talking about a pot where the crops are growing in a pot that does not have a hole. It's only chayv Meiser Sheni midir rabbanon. Okay, that concludes that. Now the Gemara says, Rava says that there are 3 levels of zechia and kinyan for a katan. The lowest would be if he knows the difference between a nut and a stone, he understands the value of the nut over the stone, then he understands the concept of possession, and he can be zeicha or koina for himself, but not for others. Doesn't understand the concept of other people's money. Now, the parallel age for a kitana, as far as kedushin, she's able to be makabel kedushin midrabanan. There's a certain age at which a kitana is able to be makabel kedushin midrabanan, and she's married midrabanan, and she requires to do something called miyan to get out of it. That's the age at which she is understanding the concept of possession. Now the next level up is what's called peutais. The Gemara doesn't define it, but we've had it before in Nafnona Tess. Peutais, they can buy, they can be kleina, but they cannot give away. They can buy and they can sell, but they cannot give away, and that only by metalton. They can buy and sell land. Now, a kitana at that age is able to be misgareshes with the kedushin of her father. Therefore, her father is mekadisher. She could be a mekabel get for herself. She's considered to be yodas lishmar gita. She's able to guard the get from being lost, and therefore she can be megaresh herself even for kedushin in the eraisa. And the next level up from that is that she's old enough to make an nedarim. That's a year before she turns 12 and a half, so she's 11 and a half. That is the age at which she is understanding. We say that we check her and we ask if she understands what she's doing when she's making nedarim. Now, as far as the katana, the parallel to that is that she's old enough to receive chalitza. Chalitza is something which requires an adult. It says ish in the parsha. Same thing, it has to be an isha, has to be an adult. That's called old enough to be an adult. She can receive chalitza. Now, what age can a child sell his father's property? That's only when he's 20 years old. Now begin the first Mishnah, which has 3 halachos. The first is that a katana cannot make a shliach. There's no shlichus for a child. Therefore, a katana who makes a shliach like Kabbalah, and the shliach goes and receives the get, she is not divorced yet. It's not a valid shlichus, and the husband can therefore cancel. However, when the get reaches her, then it is a valid divorce, assuming that the husband made him a shliach laholacha, as we've seen in the sugyas on the previous few daf. Now, the father of the Kana, though, could make a shliach l'kabbalah, and therefore if the father says to the shliach, go be makabel get for my daughter, as soon as the shliach receives the get, it is a valid get, and the husband cannot retract any longer. Next halacha is, what if the husband specifies a place, and he says, give a get to my wife, and he specifies a place. This is shliach halacha. So it depends on what his language is. If he says, give a get to my wife in this place, then he is makbid. He insists that it be in that place, and he means that it should not be valid anywhere else. He doesn't want the get to be given anywhere else. Apparently, he doesn't want the neighbors there to be talking about his personal affairs, and therefore it's possible if it's given somewhere else. However, if he doesn't say give it in this place, but he says give it to my wife and she is in this place, that type of phrase is just telling the shliach where to find her. He's not showing any particular desires or rules or hakpadas. Now, same thing applies if the woman says a specific place for her shliach l'kabbalah, but here there's a difference. So the woman says, be makabel my get for me in a specific place, and he accepts it somewhere else. So here, the Tanna Kama says the same thing, that it's possible because she only wanted it in that place. So here, Rebbe Elazar argues. Rebbe Elazar says it's kosher even if it's not in the place she said. The Gemara explains, Rebbe Elazar argues here because she doesn't have the ability to set rules. It's not up to her to decide whether she wants to receive the get or not. That's up to the husband. She can receive the get b'karcha. Now, she could change her mind as to whether or not she makes him a shliach. But because she doesn't have right to decide about receiving the get, it's unlikely that she made a specific requirement as to which location the shlichus should be. However, in the previous case, Rav Elazar doesn't argue because there it's the husband doing it, and it's up to the husband to decide where or when or how he wants to give the get. Now, the Gemara ends off and says, however, if the wife said, the Mishnah ends off and says, however, if the wife said, bring me my get, it is in this place, and she brings it from somewhere else, that's not a problem, because then she was just telling him where it is. And the Gemara only comment is why Rebbe Elazar argues, as we said before. So then we get to the next Mishnah. Over here, she makes a shliach to bring her the get. She says, go get my get for me. Until the shliach comes back with the get and gives it to her, she's allowed to eat truma if she was a bas Yisrael and her husband is a kohen, meaning we assume that she's still married until the get reaches her hand because she did not make a shliach l'kabbalah. Now, if she says niskabeli giti, she makes him shliach l'kabbalah, then she's forbidden for her to eat truma right away because as soon as the shliach receives the get, she is divorced and she can't eat truma. She's not married to a kohen any longer, and we don't know what happened. As soon as the shliach leaves, as far as we know, he already received the get. Maybe he met the husband right outside the gates of the city. Now, if she says, be makabel my get for me in this specific place, then she's allowed to eat truma until the get reaches that place. And that's Tanna Kama's opinion. And again, Rav Elazar argues and says, no, the get's chal right away because it's not up to her to decide where things can be, and it's not a real hakpada. She's just saying where it is. The Gemara asks, is a contradiction between the first Mishnah and the second Mishnah. The first Mishnah, when she said, be makabel my get in this place, and he's makabel somewhere else, it's puzzle. The second Mishnah, it's not chal until it gets to that place. And once it gets to that place, it is kosher. Why the difference? So the Gemara explains, second Mishnah is not referring to where she said, be makabel my get in this place. She said, be makabel my get in, let's say, Masa Machasya. And then she said, and sometimes it's found in Bavel. It means she's not saying that she wants it to be specifically in Masa Machasya nowhere else. It's not a hakpada. Otherwise, we're in the sheet of the Rabbanon here. Otherwise, she would not have said, sometimes you find it somewhere else. All she means to say is, usually it's going to be there. If you find it somewhere else, that will be fine. But it has to be, I want you to become a shliach there. I'm not making you a shliach until you get there. So only when the get arrives there, when you bring the get with you there, that's when you become a shliach l'kabbalah, and that's when it's chal. The Gemara now asks, what's the chiddush in Rebbe Elazar? What's the chiddush to hear? He says that she's not allowed to eat truma right away. Obviously, since we said in the previous Mishnah that Rebbe Elazar holds the intent when you say a specific place, certainly for her, is not to say that I'm makbid that it should be only there. She's just saying where he is. So here also, she's just saying where he is. And obviously, if he stepped out the door and met the husband, then he would have received the get. She would be divorced on the spot, so she can't eat truma anymore. So we're saying, no, the chiddush is that even though she said that the husband is in the east, and go east, and he insisted on going west, so he went the opposite direction, the husband's not even there. So you may say, why should she have to be concerned that she's divorced already? She went to a place that the husband is not. still, we say maybe the husband wandered around, then he got there, and he met the shliach, and therefore she is divorced. Now the Gemara brings contradictions between two sets of brises as to whether someone is being makban on something or he's just indicating what the situation is. So you have somebody who asked the shliach to make an eruv tchumen for him. That is, at the end of 2,000 amos, he's going to put down some food, and that food will be his place where he's kona shvisa for Shabbos, that is the center for tchum, and therefore he can start now on the 2,000 amos away on one end of the tchum, travel all the way there, and then all the way past that for another 2,000 amos and extend his tchum. So he said to him, make me the tchum, the eruve tchumim with a certain type of fruit, and he used the opposite. Either he said to use figs and instead he used dried. He said he used dates and instead he used dried figs, or he said he used dried figs and then instead he used dates. So the halacha over there is a contradiction between two brises. One brisa says it's good, one brisa says it's no good. So what's the answer to this? So Rabbah says it's not a kasha. One's a Rabbanan, one's a Rabbi Elazar. The Rabbanan over here said that it is a kapeda, that we're makbid, and therefore he's specifically makbid that it should be with the fruit that he said. So they would say that it's no good. Rabbi Elazar says that you're just saying where it is or what it is, or just indicating what there is there. But really doesn't care what he uses. That's Rabbah's way of resolving this steer between the brises. Rabbi Yosef has a different theory. He says no. Everybody here is the Rabbanon, and there is no kapeda. Even though in the case of Gittin, there's a kapeda, that's because there's a reason that he's makbid. He doesn't want it to happen in a certain place. However, he doesn't care what fruits it should be. So what's the difference between the brises? One is talking about where he's making an eruv with the Mishaleach's own fruits, and the other is talking about where he's making with someone else's fruits. He's borrowing someone else's fruits. If he uses the wrong fruits, he's using fruits he doesn't have a right to use. That's why it's puzzle. It's no good. And that's why he was a makbid on it. However, if it's his own fruits, he doesn't care what it is or what it isn't. So Mara asks on that. Abai asks, but that doesn't fit with a contradiction. That's not going to resolve a contradiction between another pair of brises that are very similar. And this time, the Mishaleach said to the Shliach, make me an eruv with the in the tower, and said he made it in the dove coat, the birdhouse, or he said the opposite, make me the birdhouse, and he made it in the tower. So you have again a contradiction between two brises. One that says it's good, one says that it's no good. So the answer we said about the fruits, it's my fruits, it's your fruits, that's not going to work here because there aren't any fruits. He didn't say a specific rule about fruits, he just said where it should be. Smor says no, again, he wasn't saying where to put it, he was saying where the fruits are. He was saying the fruits in the migdal, the fruits in the shovach, and he used the other fruits. So in the brisa where it's his own fruits, he doesn't care what fruits he uses. In the brisa where it's someone else's fruits, then he can only use the fruits that are here and not the fruits that are there. We now begin the third Mishnah, which discusses a whole new sugya, and that's where a person or husband is making a shliach. What language counts as making a shlichus for divorce? How clear would he have to be? So the Mishnah brings a number of examples. If he says, write a get and give it to my wife, now the word get doesn't necessarily mean a bill of divorce. It could have just meant some kind of other form of document. Yet we assume that it still means divorce because people have started calling a bill of divorce a get. They don't call other things a get, and therefore he's ordering them to divorce. If he says divorce her, same thing. Or if he says write a letter and give it to her, letter is also a word that's used for a get. In all these three situations, the shlichim should go write a get and deliver it, divorcing her. Now if he says patruha, meaning let her go, or parnasuha, meaning take care of her, or asela kanimos, do what's right, or asela karoi, do what's fitting. These cases we don't know what he means. He could have meant take care of her, could have meant to give her the food she deserves. Asela karoi could be the same thing. Patrua could mean lessen her workload. So we don't know. These aren't necessarily a lashon of divorce. He can't go ahead and divorce just based on that. Now again, the Gemara, which discusses more examples. The Gemara brings a brisa that says shalchuha, shavkuha, tarchuha. These are all words that are taken from the get themselves. It's called a shilcha mibeisai, and it says igeres shivukin and teruchin. So a sefer teruchin. So shiluchin, teruchin, shivukin are all part of the lashon of a get. So those count, and therefore you should go ahead and give the get. Patruha, meaning let her go, or parnasua, support her, asula kanimus, those we had in our Mishnah. Also asula karoi, all those are no good. Now, we have another brisa where Rabbi Nassan says there's a difference between patruha and pitrua. The difference is grammatical. Patruha means to let her go from the marriage. Pitruha means to take off obligations that she has. So patruha, you should give the get. Pitruha, you should not. It says Rabbi Nosson. Here is Rabbi Nosson Bavla, the Babylonian. He spoke Aramaic as well as Lashon Kodesh, and therefore he was medayek in the differences between Pitruha and Patruha. Arbai says from Eretz Yisrael, he only spoke one language, and therefore he did not have the fine points of Pitruha and Patruha, and that's why he didn't mention it. Now, the Gemara asks a question about a number of other Lashonis. Haitziuha, take her out. Azvuha, abandon her. Hatiruha, permit her. Hanichuha, leave her. All these, what's the halacha? Ha'ilula, help her. Asula kedas, do what's proper. All these we're asking. Some says we can answer one of them, because asula kedas we have in a brisa. It says asula kedas, do with her like the rule. Asula kenimus, similar meaning. Asula karoi, also similar meaning. All those don't count. So we can resolve that question. Okay, now we begin our last Mishnah. Well, this will end. The Mishnah talks about when somebody is going out to be killed or is about to die, and he says to give a get to his wife, but he doesn't say it properly. Do we overlook the mistake that he made because of the stress he's having at this time of his life? So Gemara says in the beginning they used to say that about someone who's going out in chains to be killed. If he said, write a get for my wife, and he didn't say give it, you should give it anyway, because of the stress, that's why he didn't say it. But you should go ahead and write it and give it. And then later they included even somebody who's traveling in a caravan, and Shem Chazuri added as well somebody who's sick and may be close to death.